in portraying John Landau, he's a fatherly connection, the two of them are brotherly, maybe, obviously, because they're pretty close to the same age. But there's aspects to Landau that I feel like he is just so, he's doing this balancing act, he's managing all of these things for Bruce, but he's also, he's got to keep his eye on like 3 or 4 different things at once, and he's doing it in such a kind-hearted and consistently precise way. What were some of the keys to him for you, or maybe in talking to him, that kind of struck you with the essence of it in some ways?
Yeah, he is a sort of constant gardener in that way.
Yeah.
What were some of the keys to John? You know, obviously I spent time with him. I devoured everything that is out there, footage of him and interviews with him. John, you know, is only a few years older than Bruce, and yet he seems sometimes like, you know, like he is a father figure. He came from such a different world than Bruce came from, and you know, was more educated than Bruce and had this sort of this gravitas and this authority, but also I love the word affability that he used, and he also has a gentleness. And you know, Jimmy Iovine talked about John a lot to me as being a steady hand. And he was always this sort of keel for Bruce, and even keel, and knew when to, you know, knew when to step in and knew when to kind of fertilize the ground and stay out of it. Someone said about John that he was someone who got to 10 by counting out 9 individual numbers one at a time. That was a real aha moment for him. And, you know, I feel like you try and learn everything you can, you try and internalize it, but I feel like doing these things in a way, it's like we have to be both the musician and also we build a new instrument every time you play a character. So first you create this instrument that is, in this case, John Landau or Bruce Springsteen. You have to figure out what that is and what it sounds like and what sounds it makes, and then become fluent in playing it. And then you show up and do the work, and that's the musician part. So that's what I love. And John was a real challenge to kind of render that essence of the love that they have for each other, but also he's a very particular character, so that's something. I mean, this was just being granted access to this world and time with these guys, as you can imagine, was like the greatest joy of my life.
I believe it. And the other essence of Landau that I think is really interesting is the scenes that we see him not with Bruce, when he's kind of, you know, a bulwark against some of the you know, the forces that might, you know, whether it's Al Teller or any other forces that sort of maybe he needs to not necessarily keep away from Bruce, but he's negotiating with them too. He's aware of what the world needs in different respects, and that's also another tightrope walk. And those scenes where he's dealing with those other characters are also phenomenal.
Yes, he has a purity that Bruce has, but John is also an incredibly shrewd, incredibly savvy businessman. Even though he wasn't a manager or producer when he became that for Bruce, he was just a rocker. But I think the column of purity that John once said, and this is early, at least in his 20s, he said that the criterion for art in rock is the capacity of a musician to create a personal, almost private universe and to express it fully. And that was John's North Star. And I think Nebraska, in a way, is the pinnacle of that in their work together. So while he knew how to interface with the record business, he knew deeply they shared the same compass spiritually and musically.
Yeah. And Jeremiah's pretty much sharing the same compass.